Now, here's your hosts, the League Dad, Kevin, Mitchell, and Alistair.
What's up, gamers, and welcome to another episode of the All In Podcast. I am the League Dad, and we are back, baby, in full force. We have all four of us here, and it was still pretty tricky to try to get all our schedules lined up, but we did it, daggone it. Kevin, Mitchell, thank you for holding down the fort for the past couple of episodes. Really enjoyed them, but thanks for still being able to put out content while me and Alistair were just pretty much slacking. I mean, that's what it was, really. We were just slacking. But no, we're taking this traveling show. We're still continuing because Kevin's in New York right now. Alistair's back in Canada, and he is he's chilling back in the bat cave over there. But before we get into everything that's been happening right now in the LCS, because it's crazy and we're gonna dive into it, let me just get a brief catch-up update with all you guys, because it's been a while since we've all four been on the show together. So Kevin, let me start with you. What's going on with you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing the second week of my onboarding, meeting my team members tomorrow in person for the first time. That'll be great. And then I fly back on Thursday after not seeing my cat for almost 2 weeks. So I'm looking forward to seeing her. She's my friend's cat sitting, so like she has people to feed her and stuff. But I just feel bad that she's been home, so that'll be super nice. New York is fun. I already described it in some pleasant and not pleasant words, but overall the food is good, the people are pretty rude, and it kind of smells here. But there's cool stuff to do everywhere within walking distance, which is sick. Like that's just something that's very hard to do in America. So
Yeah, cool, man.
Lol.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's good to finally be back. It's been a long few weeks with finals and moving back home and everything. It's been kind of difficult to get everything going, but starting to get back in the swing of things now. Overall, it's good to be back.
Nice. Yeah, I'm also traveling, I guess, too. I'm in Seattle back again.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I drove back yesterday, kind of on a whim. I just felt like Seattle summer is always amazing, and Oakland summer and like San Francisco summer, Bay Area summer, it's like okay, but it was overcast like on the day I was leaving, and I was like, yeah, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go to some sunny days. And Seattle during the summer is like the nicest time. Like it doesn't get too hot, but it's always sunny and like tons of nature everywhere. So I am going to be getting a lot of mosquito bites, but out in the wild a lot. Yeah, it'll be fun.
There you go, man. Get some fresh air. That's good. And speaking of the LCS fresh air, there's a lot of fresh air out there. You like that segue? I don't even know if that really connects, but dude, you cringe. There's a lot of crap happening.
It's on brand.
Fresh air somehow. I guess you could say that it's not so fresh air because there's been crap happening in the LCS. And, this was supposed to be our episode where we were going to do power rankings. We're going to get hype about the LCS because it's supposed to start this Thursday. We're recording this on Memorial Day on Monday. And we were supposed to talk about all the cool things we were hyped up to see this Thursday. But lo and behold, we get the news that literally just came out that there was a vote, and the LCSPA decided to vote on whether or not they would do a walkout. They made all these demands with Riot. Didn't seem like that was going to happen, and so they took a vote, and it seems like they are going to walk out and not do anything. But lo and behold, Riot comes back and says to the orgs that, hey, you have to play on Thursday, or else you were going to get fined. And we're also going to delay like the deadline where you could sign players like subs or whatever. We don't even care who you put out there. You're just going to have to play something. And, Travis just put out a video. There's been stuff all over Twitter, stuff all over Reddit. And again, not a good look for Riot. So I'll stop there because I want to get your guys' initial thoughts and reactions to everything that's happening. Give us your viewpoints, I guess, whether you're for or against the Players Association or Riot, but all of that good stuff. What are your thoughts, initial reactions to that?
Initial reactions to that. Inadvertently, Riot is helping the people that were let go because now LCS teams have to scramble in like 2 or 3 days to find a roster of people. But some of these teams are legitimately going to have to contact people they let go and probably pay them like top rates, maybe even fly them in just so they have to play like maybe 1 or 2 matches. So this is pretty crazy. I don't think that's Riot's intention. I think this is Riot's way of trying to arbitrarily make new rules to force like them to not look like it's a shit show there. But in my mind, this is worse of a shit show than a walkout. Like you delay the start of the league, it's a lot. You get less people focused on this, right? But if someone tunes into LCS on Thursday and sees like, I don't know, is Golden Glue even in Academy still? No, Sven Skaren or something like on stage, they're like, wow, cool. And then everything is just clowns everywhere. Just Academy players plus maybe some amateur that aren't even Academy, right? Because not every Academy player is going to come back, crawling back to go play, right? Some of them might just have quit anyways already. So I think it's a shit show. I think Riot really dropped the ball, but in a way, it does benefit in the very short run. It benefits the players who are just let go. Maybe some of them will get paid enough for like a couple weeks of salary. I don't know.
I mean, if you want to be honest, I don't know how much of it is Riot dropping the ball, is them thinking or not thinking they can just keep pushing the LCSPA over. Because I mean, realistically, they've kind of done nothing for the most part.
True.
They've just kind of like been a group of people who really accomplish nothing. They just kind of have a title for having a title. And this time they finally put their foot down. I don't think anyone was really expecting it. And that's kind of why Riot's scrambling to make things work, because they've just been able to push them over whenever they had the chance and where they felt like they could.
Yeah, Riot is definitely saying like they're not gonna take the walkout seriously. Essentially, is what they're saying. They're like, you guys want to throw a temper tantrum? Well, we're going to throw it to the orgs and say, figure it out. You have to play somebody. We don't care. It's pretty stupid. Yeah, I watched Travis's video and I did agree with his point that it is, and like Kevin, what you're saying too. It's like, you know, this doesn't seem like a good idea by Riot, right? Like, isn't this just bad for business for you too? Like, your solution to the walkout is to not go to the players or not go to like a compromise or anything, but it's to go to the orgs above the players' heads and say, get new players. Just fix it and just play this weekend. And it's like that I don't know, man. It doesn't fix any problems. All it does is add new problems and make everybody else pissed off at Riot and also pissed off at the orgs, right? Because if the orgs go through with it, then yeah, they're siding with Riot. They're saying, no, we're not going to eat this fine. We are just going to put random ass people in there. And then you go on top of that, right? It's like you're just creating divides between Riot and the orgs and the players. Like there's no there's no solidarity between these three groups, right? They're all in their own little in their corners now. And if I was the orgs or the players, I'd be pissed at this. And if I'm Riot, I'm also probably a bunch of people in the org, like in Riot themselves right now, are like, what the hell is this choice that we're making? Like, you go on the dive, and yeah, this announcement didn't happen yet on the dive, but the casters themselves are talking on the dive and being like, yeah, this is pretty fucked, guys. Like, this is not
Yeah.
good. Like, we know we're employed by Riot, but we're really screwing over LCS. We're screwing over completely the academy teams, and they definitely seem to be more for the Players Association. I mean, most all of them are like former players and coaches, right? So within Riot themselves, there's just like it doesn't seem like this is a good call. Like this seems like one or two people with massive egos that push this decision to say, "Yo, they want to fuck with us, we will fuck with them back." And it's like,
Yeah.
you just went nuclear, bro. Like, why did you go nuclear?
Yeah. Go ahead, Kevin.
I would add like I watched Philip Aram's like 2 hour talk show appearance on the show called The Four Horsemen. He literally talked about all the things they did up to this point and what happened, like from the POV of the LCSPA. Dude, I actually think they've actually done stuff based off of what he said. Like, I don't think they've been that effective, sure, but based off of the cards they were dealt, they, for example, one of the big things he said they got to do behind the scenes, right? Because making a big fuss on social media usually is not a great way to foster a good relationship with Riot or any big company. And so they do a lot of stuff behind the scenes. One of the things they got was they allowed all the players to play remote on Academy, like they could be based elsewhere, but they kept the salaries at the California minimum, so about like 60 to 75K. So this way, these players were getting way better stuff than like they might have been able to, and they didn't have to, necessarily house them in LA. So they did stuff like that, and this is the one time where they've been negotiating, they've been talking week over week with their contacts at Riot, the LCSPA, and Riot just went over their head. They said, "Yeah, we were fine with this. We're gonna allow this to happen and not tell the LCSPA." LCSPA literally learned from a Twitter account, the same way most people did, that this was the news. So in my mind, I think that the place to be mad at one is Riot because
Yeah.
they made these decisions, obviously, and forced it on them. And then two, it would be like a mixed share between some of the orgs, the way they were doing this. as well as the players. Like, I mean, the PA can't do anything if the players themselves are voting internally not to do stuff. There were no salary caps because one, they're not a union. Two, because why would the richest, like, why would Jensen vote against his own salary, right? Why would Double
Yeah.
if when he was at his prime vote against his own salary? There were a lot of selfish people involved up to this point, and I do give credit to the players for standing up this time, right? They're actually, a lot of them are going against their immediate interests if they're actually standing up and being Riot's bad side. I mean, it's easy when everyone's together, right? There's solidarity, but I think there's a lot of history of the players causing it. Like, what is the PA supposed to do? They can't go against the will of the players.
Yeah. I will say that we were talking about the orgs having to find people to play, and we were mentioning that and how this might actually be good for the players that take these positions. But they were saying on Travis, like, first of all, I guess they're referred to as scabs, like people who pick these jobs. But one, Travis mentioned it, and I agree that sets them up for failure, because if they do if they do take it, people will not like that, especially if they're on the player side of things. Like, it sets them up for failure, because here they are taking these quick paychecks to play. I mean, obviously, they got to get paid, so they got to take it, but people will most likely not like them for being like paycheck
Traders.
Traders, so to speak.
It's kind of like
exactly,
in a sense, yeah.
And but to that point though, it does look like and Travis also mentioned this, that it seems like most of the amateur players, because this is kind of this whole walkout is kind of on their behalf and for them as well. Apparently there is some solidarity in the fact that there's an understanding that maybe these players won't accept contracts from teams. And in fact, that the Players Association has put out kind of a call to all the players to kind of stand as one, and say, hey, we're not going to take these paychecks, because you're right. Like, if they do take them, then essentially like Riot kind of wins, right? Because you're not standing as for all players, whether you're in the LCS or not, or in the amateur scene. Yeah, you have to stand together on this for you to have any leverage. But going back to just the Riot hate, like, it's crazy that they've taken so many L's. Like, we've been talking about, it seems like every episode this past split, we've just been talking about all the L's that Riot, especially in the LCS, has been taking, and it just seems like they continue to step on their own like feet and like do not care. And I don't know at what point fans will just be like, you know what, like, I'm tired of it, like, let's move on to the LPL. Like, it almost is like we're burning it to the ground. But as an LCS fan who really wants LCS to be taking place, like, I'm getting more and more frustrated, and I'm wondering at what point do I just say, you know what, F this then. I'm just gonna watch LPL because the competition's better. Maybe there's co-streamers and they get some permissions there and it becomes more enjoyable, or whatever, and better timing for us to watch that product. But I'm wondering if there will be a point at that, and I wonder that if that's what it'll take for Riot to finally be like, okay, we pissed our fans off too much, and so here's something we need to do. Yeah, go ahead, Alistair.
Well, I think the best solution is for, instead of just sending contracts out to like random amateur players, what you do is you get random people who are already in the org. So you get like, all right, we have the physiotherapist playing in the jungle.
Yeah.
We got the chefs in the mid lane.
Let's go.
But
Yo,
on a
bring
more
Reggie back.
serious note, I do think we're
bad
kind of at the
Martin
point
left.
where, I mean, we've been talking about burning it down for a while, and we said it before, like, things have to get worse before they get better, most likely. And I think we're just kind of at that right now. We just kind of, I think, hopefully we just see it through and it goes well. I think that's kind of the stage we're at. Obviously, it feels bad, but it was kind of a necessary evil in my eyes.
But is there a point though where it goes beyond like the burning it? Like, so forest fires naturally occur, right? And it's actually healthy for forests. Like, they need to burn in order for like cycles to take place. But at what point does a forest burn so much that it is unable? Yeah, like it's scorched earth. Like, are we at that point, or am I just being a pessimist? Go ahead.
We need to see.
Okay.
It's too early to say in my eyes.
I have a take about that, like, going too far sort of idea, and a lot of people I think are afraid of it, right? So, like, even before I heard that Riot was going to force teams to just put in whatever players, which was like, just another layer on top of things. I was thinking, like, if you are an org and your players are walking out and you are not gonna have anybody to field in the first week of LCS and maybe longer, right? Like this industry is already collapsing around you. The economy, the American economy, is already not in a great spot for you. You, as an entertainment esport organization, is probably not doing that great right now. Even C9 has to drop their academy team because it's just not worth it, right? I think we heard from the dive and from other sources that academy salaries are also inflated. Sometimes people were having buyouts for $500,000. Sometimes actual academy salaries were in the couple $100,000, right? So um, orgs already needed like some sort of relief in funding. So I mean, this is small potatoes for 1 week, but like you have 1 week where like you don't have any revenue, right? You don't have any like sponsorship clicks or anything like that. Like your Twitter followers aren't increasing, whatever, right? For like let's say Cloud9. Um, if you have players walk out and you're losing money like this, right? And then if you give into the only way they come back is if you give into some of their demands, that costs more money and time. And then you wonder, well, if this could happen once, right? Most companies think if something happens to me, what if it happens to me again? And if I'm an org, I have to now account for my players walking out of me again in the future.
It's true.
Like, when is it just too far for some orgs to be like, I just can't afford this shit. I can't afford to have a players walk out of me. I can't afford to meet their demands, and I can't afford them to have a second walkout after I've met their demands.
Yeah.
So it's like it's really tough for the orgs right now if they're poor, but at the same time, for the players, like you have to walk out, right? You're literally losing the jobs that are secondary right next to you. So we're in the situation where I think the orgs and the players are in a catch-22, and then you add the wrinkle that the only person or entity that could save them is Riot, and they go the opposite direction and say fuck both of you. Like Riot does not come in and save the day, which they needed to do in the situation where both the org and the players were pretty left with no decisions and pretty desperate, right? Riot came in and said fuck you both.
Yeah.
And that is the world we live in right now, and it's really shitty. So I that's kind of what I feel like is like if it's too late, I don't know. This is pretty scorched earth material right now. So go ahead, Kevin. Let's talk about more of that.
Yeah, another major thorn in the side of this whole issue is like Riot has a vested interest in not letting this be effective because they have a bunch of very well paid employees at Riot Games. If they allow one of their sister products, which is the LCS, to do a walkout and get more rights, like that's the kind of spark that gets your own workers if they ever have another harassment issue or underpayment issue or whatever forced arbitration for like the harassment thing. Any of those things happen, and maybe they do a lockout, like a serious one this time, because they know that they can potentially actually get some recourse. So Riot like is trying to shut it down, I think largely because that's one of the other things they have to think about. As for Scorched Earth, I don't think it's there yet. I think that this is the burn it down we were talking about. I think that at least based off of what more and more people are revealing, like Academy was being paid a lot, and like unironically, like there were players who were going there to Academy to retire, or like some people did revitalize their careers, and some people actually did get their start. But a lot of people went, and they were getting 75K, 65K, whatever the number is, right, with no expenses, no food, no housing for a lot of them. That's a lot of money, guys, especially for playing games to 2,000 viewers. And these teams, including like EGs of the world, like relatively big esports orgs, were generating no engaging content. They were trying. Like I've actually watched the content. Like there are a lot of teams that kind of try, but we were back in the day. TSM was like making no money, and they were getting like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views on every video. So we do need a correction where these salaries properly reflect the reality of the esport. We don't need VC money to prop up these salaries, guys.
Yeah.
And we need that passion and that kind of like, I'm playing because I love the game and because I love to compete, not so that I can make 2 mil for one split and then go fuck off back to Europe or China or LZK, wherever you're from, right? Like I'm sick of that. And so if they like this is a huge thing. They revealed that Riot is paying them $3 million a year or something like that. 2 to 3 million was the number.
It's 3.
Just as a rev split.
Mm-hmm.
And where's that money going? Right? Is that not enough to survive? Is the earth so scorched that's not enough? Like, am I missing something here?
Right.
Yeah.
It seems like these $30-40 million facilities are unnecessary. Our results have gotten worse.
Yeah.
That is
No,
the other side of that too, where it's like I think the orgs like that I'm sure there's a lot of people at Riot that said like we gave you guys so many bones, we gave you guys all this money, we gave all you guys these help, and the orgs totally boofed it, right? Like spent $10 million on a roster to not go to Worlds for Team Liquid, spend $6 million on Sword Art to not go to Worlds on TSM, spend $3 or $5 million, $10 million buyout on perks to make it 2 quarters and get 3-0'd, right? Like I think like yeah, this is just repercussions of a lot of like, oh my god, it's like when you're in a relationship, right? And you're getting a big fight, and it's like one of those like big fights where it's like, oh my god, you're bringing up everything. You're throwing out that first time that you ever had a fight when like you accidentally threw out her pizza, and then you're getting the fight where like you were late to like your wedding or something. Like it's just like all the fights are coming up all at once, and like it's leading to like this sentiment where it really feels like the players are salty as hell, the orgs are salty as hell, and Riot is like just like fuck all of you, like screw this shit, like I don't care about the players, I don't care about the orgs, this is my LCS, we're playing something on Thursday, people are playing games, like it is. God, I feel like everyone's just so petty right now, like all the decisions are being made are
Yeah,
so
I
aggressive.
think, I mean, obviously when you look at it, it's definitely, there was a bubble. It was definitely a bubble, just like every other bubble, real estate bubble, tech bubble. The LCS and the organizations within the LCS were propping it. It was because it was growing. It was booming. I mean, we were selling out arenas everywhere, right? Not just here, but internationally. And so when you go to investors, you're like, hey, and this was like the first, I think, real esport that was showing, look, this can be super big. I mean, we're on ESPN3, right? Like we're making it. And the truth of the matter is that, yeah, player salaries got inflated. VCs were investing, and it's not just Riot, but investors investing in organizations kind of selling something that, or overselling something that they thought would be this huge international product, but it turned out that, hey, no, it takes more than just money and recruiting people and buying people to come over here to actually have long-term success. Like you need infrastructure, you need more development at a younger level to be able to be, good domestically and internally. Then it blew. Like the investment wasn't, the return on investment wasn't there. And so now players that had these huge deals, like it was definitely not profitable. Couple that with COVID, couple that with FTX going under, like everything is just piling on, right? Yeah. And so orgs and Riot are at a point where, yeah, money is tight. Like I don't disagree. Even if people are looking at the exact numbers, like it doesn't take that much to do any NACL or whatever, but I don't think that's the full picture. I think they're probably in debt. They're probably like, in the negative zone of expenses that are, basically catching up with them, and this money that's gone, which maybe they projected into their future revenues or future profits, and it's not there anymore. And so the truth of the matter is that, yeah, they have to go budget. Like it's no secret. Look at EG, right? That's like, they have to go budget. And I think, as much as we hate to say it, like, and Alistair, I think you've said this plenty of times, is that orgs are not in it to like please us. They are a business. And when they have to look at their bottom line, like they have to cut NACL, even if it's a small portion of their balance sheet, because they need to get back into the black in order to make money as a company. And that's just a result of the fallout of the bubble. And Alistair's, speaking of fallout, his camera's just falling all over the place.
But I kind of left my monitor stand in
oh, okay.
Carolina, so I kind of just have it leaned up against the back of my desk.
Oh, man, there you go.
Nice.
Hey. Yeah.
Hey, Freak's Basement. Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I mean,
it's a very low tech bat cave.
Hey, whatever works, man. But I mean, like, that's what I mean, though, is that, like, I think just to recap everything, I think everything just is happening with this perfect storm, and that's why sometimes it feels like it could be scorched earth. But real quickly, like, the thing is like the actual demands of the player association, like, I don't know if we've actually like looked at each one, so I want to just read it real quick, because to me it doesn't sound. It doesn't sound like it's too much to ask. And so part of this is like, why is
one
Riot...
of them is.
Okay, yeah. So let's go through that and then let's
Yeah.
let's digest it. So here's I'm just gonna read it through and then you guys can just talk about it as a whole. But their ask of Riot, the Players Association, one, institute Valorant style promotion and relegation between LCS and NACL. The other one is Riot commit to a revenue pool for player salaries of 300K per NACL team per year. The next one, allow LCS orgs to partner with affiliates for cost sharing. The next one, Riot guarantees LCS minimum contracts for the following year for the 5 players who win the LCS Summer Finals each year. And then the last one is institute a 3/5 roster continuity rule to provide players on released NACL rosters first priority in maintaining their slots in the upcoming NACL season if a majority continue to compete together. So those are the asks of the Players Association. Let's just take that as a whole and go through it. Like, do you guys think that's a lot? I mean, like, what do you think could be problematic there between the Players Association and with Riot, if any?
Promotion relegation is definitely problematic. I would love it back, but the problem with franchising is there's such an inherent cost. Now, we did say there was a 3 million per year thing, so honestly, if they bit the bullet now, like took that L in their spreadsheet or the balance sheet, paid back the 10 million franchising fee, and just like was like, okay, we don't give you 3 million a year anymore, so in 4 years we'll be fine. I think it'd be way more exciting for the league. For the other requests, I think they were generally fine. Like, you do want to reward the winners of splits. You do want continuity between rosters because that means that you can't just like burn down the whole roster and just continue to just import like randos over and over and over. Now, I think that's a little too strict and that won't pass. But I think for the most part, like as any negotiation tactic anyone will hear, they'll put some really reach goals up there so that they can take them off the table, right? So I think it's a generally okay list. I do think personally that businesses need to manage themselves better.
Sure.
I think Riot
Yeah.
giving the $3 million is like, I don't know why we need a 300K guaranteed for NACL. Like, if this
Right.
business chooses not to hold a NACL team, they should eat the cost of that. They don't need to be handheld through like get guaranteed money for everything throughout the process. Personally,
Okay.
I agree. I actually don't think that Riot should need to hold an NA, or sorry, the org should need to hold an NACL team because realistically, it's meant to just be a talent farm. You don't have need.
Yeah.
I feel like you don't need to have direct like that direct link. Um, though I also feel like this same vein, kind of a little off topic, but instead of cutting costs, why don't you try and add another profit way? Like, go like, okay, here's this splits LCS skin. You can get an EG chroma if you're an EG supporter, and then you can put that towards LCS or something like that.
Yeah.
Just as like, because they're so focused, everything, all the talk is, oh, we're cutting this cost, we're cutting this cost, we're lowering this, we're lowering this, or we're removing this, but there's no additional revenue coming in. And I feel like maybe that has been consideration at some point. I don't know. I'm not a business guy, but I just feel like there's so much cutting and not enough adding.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good point. I think with specifically that idea, it's been talked about before, like having like chromas or like skins for like certain regions and teams and stuff. And I think for Riot, that is another way of them eating a cost. Like it does add profit, but for the creation of that, that's like another version of Riot eating that cost sort of thing. So that's something that's like Riot would just have to want to do that. You know, that's like they just want to have to hire some people to make that shit, right? Like that takes time. It's not easy to make skins and chromas for teams and stuff to have them feel meaningful. So that's something that I've thought about a lot, where it's like that would just have to be Riot wants to do that. Um, the one that I want to talk about is obviously like the idea of introducing relegations. I think that's pretty much impossible to do actually. Like, yeah, you'd have to give back 10 million to each team. That's $100 million. I don't know if Riot could just come up with $100 million by the end of this year, right? End of next year, and
Yeah.
just say, hey, here you go, teams. Like, now we're gonna have relegations, and then what happens the step after that is, you know, what if 100 Thieves is like, yo, we have relegations. I got my 10 million back. I'm not making 3 million a year. I'm not doing all this stuff. I might not make it in the league. Like, why do I even be here? Like, let me just dip, right? Like, I don't have to be here anymore. Like, I got my money back, and The LCS isn't exactly thriving, right? The change from franchising to relegations isn't exactly going to revive and fix all of the problems. Like, I imagine more teams would just dip, and I imagine we would have to fill the space with, yeah, more orgs that care, but a lot less like infrastructure and a lot less big names, and we would have to get lucky, right? I think they're mentioning this on the dive as well, and it's also been mentioned just like all over the internet, is like this guy's toast, right? He's coming up with a really
Yeah.
like grassroots amateur academy slash NACL team. I'm not actually sure which section he's going to try and compete in, but it's he said he's going to pay his players 2,000 a month, and I hope like I didn't hear about this, but Kevin, you mentioned, or someone mentioned that the NACL players can play remotely and still get California minimum. Um, that is a big deal, right? Because yeah, it's not cheap to live in California. It's actually really hard to live in Los Angeles and make it to the LCS studio if you're making 60, 70K. Like
Yeah.
if you're living in Los Angeles and you make 60K, all your money goes to rent and food. Like maybe you get a little extra, right? That's a really hard life. Like that's not high quality of living at all. Um, so I think that the remote stuff is interesting, right? But like even Disguised Toast, 2,000 a month, that's 24,000, right? To play in NCL, and it's a full-time thing. League of Legends is pretty full-time. That's not that great either, right? Like where are you living? Like what's your situation? You're not going to college. You're not getting another job.
Yeah.
So that's rough. But you know, other players, other people, like this is I guess my little bit of hopium right now is like Ludwig and Mr. Beast and Carlos and stuff like that, they could all come in and save the day because you know what? They're rich as hell, and none of this stuff actually matters to them. They could just be like, those individuals probably have more money than like a handful of orgs combined. Like it's kind of crazy. So like maybe they can save the day in this situation. Disguised Toast is the start. Mr. Beast has always been in it. Like that would have to be like kind of like the only thing bailing us out if like our orgs start dipping. Um, so that was a bit of a tangent, I guess, but
No, I mean, I think it's good. I
yeah,
think,
yeah,
well, here's then what I kind of want to, bring full circle here is that before all of this hoopla, the big news was that, Reggie and TSM had made this announcement that they were phasing out of, they wanted to get out of the LCS and go to a different region. And boy, was there a lot of kind of like, hate on that. And, I know even Azale, I liked his answer. He was just like, good effing riddance, like it's been obvious that you haven't cared about the LCS, like fine. Right. And even by their roster, now it looks like they don't really give a fart. But honestly, are they actually big brained? Because if you think about business moves, right, like LCS is kind of crashing and burning. And if they are looking as far as like profitability, and if Reggie is, here's the one thing I will say about Reggie, even though I don't like him as a person, his personality, I have always thought that he has been a pretty shrewd business guy. Like I've always thought that when it comes to business decisions, because it kind of has that personality, like if his bottom line is this, then he will do it no matter what. And if his bottom line really is international tournaments and international wins, then I think he's right in having to go outside of the LCS to do it. If he can't get the import rule lifted, he's just going to go straight to the imports. Like, I honestly think that's his game plan. Like, but honestly, like in all seriousness, like the LCS as a product doesn't look like it's the greatest. And if he can see, because he said it's been, I don't know if this is true or not, but he said he's been talking about it for 2 or 3 years, whatever. But if that's been the signs that LCS has kind of been on the downhill trend, then maybe getting out wasn't such a, I don't know, such a bad move in the first place.
I gotta say, some of the reason why the LCS is on a downturn, I mean, it's kind of Reggie's fault, isn't it? Because of his bad choices. Like, didn't it kind of start with him bringing in Sven and Mithy and paying them a truckload of money and then having them shit the absolute bed? Isn't that kind of that's the start, right? Franchising started, they got Sven and Mithy, they got rid of Double Lift, and boom, the most popular org completely pooped themselves for the first time ever. Like I feel like that was the start with franchising of TSM's downfall completely. And the most popular, most interesting, most beloved, known esports org in the entire fucking world, TSM, I mean, he boofed it,
Well,
right?
no, but I will say that. But at that time, though, the hope was that we could still, from NA, build an international product, and that was the reason. Like, I think at that time, he still wanted more than 2 imports or 3
No,
imports.
he
Yeah.
wanted it, but
Exactly.
he fucked it up. He
Exactly.
made a mistake.
He
Yeah,
did,
so
but what I'm saying is like now that it's obviously clear that there is no chance that that LCS is going to be able to even import their way to a victory. Like he's like, well, screw it. Like I'm gonna
after he's
get
already
out.
tarnished his name and gotten multiple articles written about him and how he's a psychopath, he should have done it 4 or 5 years ago. Then, like
I agree.
I want to. I mean, yes, Reginald's obviously a shrewd businessman. He is obviously not an idiot, right? Like he
Right.
made TSM from literally a box of scraps in a cave, right? So that like he always gets that. Like that's great. Like I mean,
Mhm.
I hate the guy, but that's great for him.
Yeah.
But
Right.
like I'm gonna be honest, like that guy was a total idiot. Like he totally screwed himself by getting rid of the double lift stuff. Yeah, okay, whatever. The
Mhm.
sword art deal totally screwed himself again. Once upon like that's fine, right? The years and years of being a malignant CEO and being a terrible person, and it finally coming to bite him in the butt, and then TSM all of a sudden being like one of the most hated names. Like it's just I don't know. He's leaving because like it's not a good business decision. It's because he has to. Everybody hates him here. Like
Everyone
people
will
don't
hate
like
him,
him.
but everybody will hate him anywhere else too. I think. I
True.
mean,
So
I
what
don't
else?
I
think
don't
that's
think.
true. I don't think
Yeah.
that's true. There are a lot of really bad Chinese owners in the LPL, and if they came over here, we
Yeah.
wouldn't know, right? Like
Okay.
we don't
Yeah.
follow, right?
That's
It's the
true.
biggest league in the world,
You're
and we
right.
wouldn't follow at all.
That's a good point.
Like a lot of people just know the TSM meme. Like, why would people chant TSM, TSM, TSM? Like, obviously it's a meme, but some people unironically still chant it because they're like, oh, I mean, it's internationally known, right?
Yeah.
Maybe
It's
LPL
LPL
could work.
finals. TSM, TSM. Like
Yeah,
it
shit
Yeah,
me
it was
now,
still
man.
there.
It just happens.
I'm
I
with
mean,
Kevin.
I think it surprisingly will do well, and they might not give a fuck. They don't regret it, so it's like they might care if he screws things up in LPL or LCK wherever he ends up, right? But
I mean,
I
Peter
mean, until he
Zhang,
does that, he
right?
kind of gets a new life.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was joking with Mitchell. I don't know if it was during the podcast or before. I was like, dude, they're hunting down Peter Zhang. They finally figured it. Because we were always talking like, oh, he doesn't have the jurisdiction in the U.S. anymore if he goes to China.
Yeah.
Well,
he's
Not
coming. He's a
anymore.
man on a
he's
mission.
coming in for that
Get some
sword art money.
revenge.
Okay, but I will add for myself. Do I think this is a good decision by him? He's been trying it for 3 years. That's what the reports are saying. So it's not that again, back then LCS was relatively way healthier than it is now. Like we were still going 3-3 at international tournaments and stuff like that, and almost making it. Like being competitive. Like Liquid for years on end would just go 1-1 against good teams, right? I think he thought the money was in LPL, which that's the truth. The money is there. And if you look at NIP V5, which is Ninjas and Pajamas are doing a joint team already, the model is there. It's already been proven. It wasn't that Reggie didn't want to go. It was Riot didn't let him until this year. That's how I believe it to be. They probably held his franchise spot at gunpoint. I was like, if you leave, you don't get any money. You don't get any value of this asset or some. That's my guess. And I think this year, with all the pressures, right, in the system, like they just don't care, right? TSM is no longer. It has degraded to the point where its value for the league is less than just letting him go. Like, he has,
Right.
Maybe very maliciously degraded the value of the TSM brand domestically on purpose, probably for 3 years now. Like they've pretty much done the equivalent of running it down for at least a year or two, right? And only like done the most half-assed effort possible in case like the product would still survive through COVID.
I don't know if you ever go do something on purpose to worsen your brand and make less money. Like it just happened to him, and he's like, I don't think he ever would choose to do that because you're just making less money in the moment at the time. Like I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe it's big brain, but that sounds fucking stupid.
I don't think
I
it
feel like
possible
he's
he's just
dumb enough
screwed
to
up a
think.
lot and then just went with it.
Yeah, I think that's how
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
going.
That's
I think that's
probably
what.
Okay,
the
actually no,
actual-
I agree. That's actually pretty
Yeah.
fair.
Like, oh my god, like Reggie, whatever, man. But Reggie is like the source of this microcosm, though, right? Like, TSM leaving, TSM being a shit org, TSM making all these choices throughout the years, like they were the template that is like kind of like caused all these other orgs to do very similar things, right? EG shit org also did a similar thing, and I feel like all the buying of crazy ass players with the massive ass contracts man, like that's it all started like kind of with TSM a little bit, right? So
Immortals and TSM, but yeah, I agree.
Immortals, yeah, as well. Immortals with the I think it was Huni and Reignover stuff, right?
Hmm.
In 2017. So um, we're kind of jumping all over the place with this conversation, right? So
Just like
like
Yeah.
TSM.
yeah. But
Well, go ahead, Alistair. I know you
Well,
had something.
I do want to say as much as the TSM hate train is always entertaining, I do think there is one org that definitely create a lot of issues that does need to be mentioned. This, and that's Cloud9. They were that beacon of like, we have the good infrastructure. We're constantly bringing up players from the ground up, and they just randomly started spending a ton of money and then performing worse.
mm,
They were the team that you would look up to, like, as a smaller org, and try and grow like they did. They stopped doing that, and now no one in the LCS does. Everyone's trying to buy, and then you've got like the low budget orgs who are just like digging for scraps of these imports that are no longer proven on high level teams. I mean, look at what happened with Crown, for example. He
yeah.
just he just went to a lower tier team. We see this all the time, and like obviously Reggie screwed up a lot. I also think Jack did as well.
Oh yeah, Jack and Steve joined the arms race for sure, and were like
Steve is always in the
also
arms race.
yeah.
After he got to double lift, he was
Yeah.
always in the arms race.
I think he just
That
doesn't get as much criticism because he succeeded for a while.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, all those guys, right? The top three boys, I mean, even CLG, right? Them being like crap for years and years and years, and only till recently were they actually kind of good with like homegrown talent, only to get replaced, right? Like our four top OG legacy orgs, them with like the decisions of a handful of legacy players, right? Like, you know, you already mentioned Jensen, but like Bjergsen, Double Lift, like Sneaky, whatever, everybody who was a part of all these massive contracts, Huni, Impact, blah 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 blah. All these guys are also like, it's not like they're to blame, but like them getting all this money and not returning results and not like, Doublelift, his brand blew up for himself, right? He has a massive stream. Same with Sneaky and Meteos and all these other guys. But like, it never returned anything into the LCS to keep it going. They took like, honestly, you go to the co-stream, right? And like sometimes it's just like these former LCS people who are just shitting on the LCS product. Like, I'm not saying like they shouldn't do that because it's entertaining, it makes them money, but like, all these players, all these orgs, all the people in Riot that made the decisions over the past 6, 7, 8, whatever years, like they profited in the short term, and now we are facing the consequences of what those greedy ass people did to the product. And there's no money left to just like what keep amateur. Like, okay, all of amateur, right? It's not cheap. I'm gonna be honest. It's probably not cheap, but like, is it more than 10 million for perks plus another 6 million for Sword Art plus another 10 million for the entire TL roster plus blah 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 blah, blah all the double lift contracts and Beerson like, you know what I mean? Like, the money was fucking there. We just gave it away for fun.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's where we're at now, though. It's
we
like
deserved it, I guess. I don't
yeah,
know.
they made they made these financial mistakes. It was bad kind of financial strategies, and this is where we're at with the repercussions of it. I do think, hopefully, that the lesson is learned and that salaries, yes, are at all-time lows, but it should be reset. That's where the burning it down, I think, is good, because now we can really see, okay, who's actually worth what they need to be paid. I mean, obviously we want players to get paid, but it was very apparent that it was inflated by a lot. And so hopefully in that respect, we do get more parity as to what the players should be getting paid and rightfully paid, and hopefully that evens things out as far as the competition goes. I think you'll always still have those orgs, and if there is no cap that's put in, then you will always have those more profitable orgs, getting the quote unquote bigger name talent. That's just always going to be the case. But if that is something that can be instilled later on with caps, adding caps to it, then maybe we won't see such a huge disparity in the future.
Yeah, so I want to extend that to a question, right? So like, okay, NACL's gone-ish, right? Maybe it comes back in some form, but probably not by this year. Like, it's gonna be, I imagine this is gonna resolve through some compromise after a bunch of like shit throwing and stuff. There's gonna be some compromise between the players and the orgs and Riot, right? Eventually, I don't think LCS is going to die, and literally for the rest of this year, we just won't have LCS broadcast. Like that, it's probably not going to happen. There's
Yeah.
going to be some level of compromise that will happen. Um, Once that compromise happens, right? And let's say there is a LCS or NACL cap, and we do move forward with having some NACL teams or some like should every org have an academy team, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna just say, to me, I'm gonna say no. For the reason that, like, what Alistair said earlier is that basically the academy or NACL, whatever, is just a talent pool, right? Where it's a feeder program where you find talent and put into teams. The only reason I would say it shouldn't be mandatory, or why a team might want it, is that it's under the same brand name, and then they can use those players for like purposes of scrimming, or like, having more players to use internally for whatever reason they might have. But to require them, I don't think that's such a necessary thing. Like, you don't need to have your own like academy team to still be able to recruit from talented, and from a talented pool, if there's already a funnel or scene for it. And also what's nice is, like, we see even like the Maryville like collegiate being put into the NACL now, right? So I'm thinking of Alistair, right? Like, he could probably, get his collegiate teams into those things. So I don't think it's necessary for a team to be required to have it, but I also think it's a good option if they want to have it.
Well,
But again,
yeah.
like, for me, the requirement I don't think is necessary.
I'm gonna chime in super quick and let everybody else go. Like then, like that is kind of like the thing I think the Players Association is fighting against, right? Like having not like if you give them the option, no one chooses that option is what they're trying to fight against. So I just want to bring that. I'm not saying you're right or wrong because honestly I don't know either. But I think from the player side, if you let them have the option to not have an amateur team, they will not have an amateur team because it's NA, because it's LCS. The Then we just won't have an amateur team, and then there is no pipeline to get into pro.
Yeah,
So
I think I always like the solutions that aren't forced upon you, but you're incentivized to do things.
yeah,
I think we should add 1 or 2 spots that are promotion relegation, like to the league. Like instead of cutting into the franchise, which is really messy, we have 2 spots for like wild card teams or whatever you want to call them. Teams that these spots are not locked in, but if you field an academy team and they win their academy season, they're promoted up. And if they suck ass, they will they will have to play against whoever wins the next season, right? And then you know what happens? Everyone fields a team. Everyone. That's what happened when we did have promotion relegation. People
Yeah.
fielded C9 Blue or whatever they called themselves, the C9 Challengers, right? And they were just farming that system for money, but they were putting up some good players along with veterans. And everyone was trying to get into that system. I want to open NACL where Team Tony Top and whatever the
Yeah.
hell all these what team the one with the Garen top player as well. All of these teams just go out there and they duke it out in a blood war. And it's
Yeah.
more interesting because there's something at the end and we get to see them come up.
I
All you
I
have to
like
do
that
is,
idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
right?
I like
I
it.
want incentives for the NACL to exist. I don't want it to be like gun to my head. And then you know what happens when there's a gun to head? We have a bunch of teams from even the elite orgs who don't compete in NACL. They just field the team and don't develop those people.
Yeah.
And they just sit around because it's part of their contract
Sure. Yeah.
as the franchise slot. I hate that.
I like
okay,
that. Yeah.
not bad. Any thoughts, Alistair?
I mean, kind of just going off of that, but like, anyone who's taken a singular psychology course knows that if you force something to do it, they're not going to want to do it, and they're going to do everything they can to not do it. If you give someone a reason to want to do something, guess what? They're going to want to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean it's not an idea I've heard of, like expanding the league to 12 teams, having 2 of those spots be actual for the relegation. You appease the people who are franchised, and you appease the NACL and the Academy and the Player Association and a bunch of potential orgs to enter in. You appease the current orgs to say you would have to make some rule, right? Where like I think there is a rule right now where one org can't have multiple teams like
Yeah.
anywhere. So you would have to change that, right? Like let's say if like C9 Blue they made it through some sort of amateur academy type system. They won the relegations. They entered the league. C9 would have to be allowed to have 2 teams. That could be very complicated because now you have 2 C9 teams that could potentially compete against each other. You can fix matches, you can do all sorts of convoluted stuff that is hard to actually control. So that is like the one wrinkle I see in this area. But I mean, besides that, I mean, it's kind of a cool idea, right? It's that's a cool idea. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 12 teams or
We
something
might
like
be
that,
forced
right?
to sell it to some external buyer or something like that. I don't
Right.
know.
Eh,
We
that
used to.
that lead,
It worked in the past. I
yeah.
forget exactly how we righted
That's
that
how we
ship
got
though.
Cloud9.
That
That
is how
leads
we.
to
Mhm.
other issues though, right? So like let's say if you are in a down market
Mhm.
and you do enter relegation as C9 Blue, but you have to sell the brand to a different brand,
Right.
no one could buy. Like maybe no one buys, right? Because like right now we're in
Yeah.
a situation where Tony Top team or whatever, they can't
Hmm.
afford to enter the NACL, right? They just can't afford, so they disbanded.
Yeah.
They had like other people are getting saved by Disguised Toasties. He's paying them 2K a month. Like the money situation is super tight for all the people everywhere, right? There's
Mhm.
even less money for amateur teams. There's even less money for NACL teams. There's not enough money for LCS teams as it is. So I think money is also the big problem here for
Mm,
that solution.
that's true.
But I mean, there's always problems for every solution, right? So
Yeah. It
I agree.
looks like there's I mean there's definitely a lot of a lot of things that could be done. Who knows what the right solution is? All I know is that look, we were supposed to be having fun debating about who our power rank teams were going to be for this Thursday, and really the conversation isn't even about that, and we've kind of gone about 50 minutes, and so I don't want to really do power rankings now because I want to do that, and to be honest, the first week is going to be a wash whether our actual teams were playing anyways or not, because it's the first week and everybody's kind of
yeah,
got the blues. But I do want
I
to ask, I do like when we go to rosters, because there were so many things that changed, and I know Mitchell, you and Kevin kind of discussed that in a previous episode. But real quick, I just want to ask if there's any team that you're excited to see with the roster change or without the roster change, and see how they'll do this summer split. Is there any team in particular where you're like, ooh, I'm interested to see that? Maybe if you're not gung ho. I mean, I know I have one, and I'll just start so that maybe you can kind of think about it. But for me, I'm actually interested in to see Energy perform with FBI and Ignar. Because we did talk about when they were CLG, how they needed to make some changes. They were kind of on that cusp. But they needed a little consistency, and I know Luger was kind of pointed to as not being the most consistent. So with someone like FBI, I don't know if Poom should have been taken out, but I mean, either way, I think it's an interesting change, and I'm just curious to see how it does. And under this new rebrand, maybe with anything new, maybe there's a honeymoon stage, and they start fresh and things get
dude,
exciting. So I don't
can,
know.
can I just say what a time to join the LCS for Energy?
I know,
They
right?
just joined at the perfect time. They don't even get to play the first week.
I know, it's pretty interesting. But anyways, that's the one I'm excited. There's of course other ones too, but that's the one I'm interested to see. All right, what about you, Kevin? Anything? Did Kevin freeze or no, he's there. Kevin.
So mine might sound weird, but I'm here. Hello.
Oh, hello.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you're super
Hello.
delayed, I
I think
think.
you were just super
Or
lagged. That's what it was.
oh my god, yeah, you're good. You go ahead. Talk.
It's because hotel Wi-Fi. My bad. Mine's super weird, but I'm most excited to see Team Liquid. I'm excited to see him with the
What?
real team. I want to see how Reno writes this shit.
Team Liquid.
Is it still lagging?
It
Yeah,
is
it's
lagging.
still
It's kinda
lagging
funny.
pretty bad.
It's really
And it's
funny.
pretty funny. It's pretty funny because like our reaction and your
I can
reactions
hear
are
you
like.
guys normally, so it's really weird.
That's interesting. I guess it's just like yeah,
Oh boy.
it's just your input to us is
Yeah, no,
different.
it's all good.
It's
Yeah,
so
okay. But I do think it's funny that you said Team Liquid because that's your freaking team. So, but go ahead and expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's double funny. Yeah, I mean, we watched this team. They were pretty shit. Okay, I'm not gonna lie. Like their mid 80 carry, there's just a lot of flaws, and the jungler as a world champion was probably the most underwhelming world champion coming off. But they didn't have a coach, so I want to see them play with a coach. I think that it cannot get worse, and they were still on the cusp of playoffs, so I think they can move up a couple slots just by having a coach.
Fair enough.
I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, there's a decent amount of teams that haven't really changed a lot, but just changed. I think some important places that I am excited to see, and especially because they didn't live up to what everyone expected. 100 Thieves, especially a big one with no Bjergsen. I think I don't like hating on the guy, but he was he just wasn't it. He
Yeah.
just wasn't. He hasn't been for a while. So it'll be nice to see them with the new mid laner and Sunday. I mean, Sunday's just he's solid. He's just one of the best in the role. Team Liquid as well. I want to see if Golden Guardians can keep up their streak.
Yep.
And I would agree with NRG, but I'm also not a very big Ignar fan, so
Yeah. He hasn't been good since his FlyQuest days, back in 2020. That was a long time
Mhm.
ago for Ignar.
he's also just kind of a prick.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, he in solo queue, right? He had that thing with Sneaky where he was like just unnecessarily mean to him for
Oh,
like
really?
yeah, it blew up. This was like
He was
five
known for
plus.
inting people.
Yeah, this was like
Ah,
five to
okay.
7-ish years ago or something like that. But yeah. Um something I want to bring up is that actually we can get 4 seeds for NA this year. So our 4 seed actually plays against the
Yeah.
European 4 seed for a spot at Worlds this year. So when we're thinking about power rankings and we're thinking about people who can go to Worlds and we're thinking about how this year is going to play out in terms of in-game stuff instead of out-of-game stuff, um, it's actually 4 people can go, 4 teams can go. So if
Yeah.
you're fourth, you can still make it to Worlds. Actually, it's not like doomed to be fourth place. So if you ever power rank someone fourth, you're actually saying that they could go to Worlds, which is
Hmm.
crazy. Um,
So
so I
minor
mean,
region worlds is the move, right?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Like we
yeah,
just we keep making it more and more pointless for minor
Yeah,
regions to
just
show up. To be honest,
exactly.
yeah, we keep adding more and more major region seeds, right? Yeah,
yeah,
Hmm.
it's just
it's
I
harder and
just
harder.
I feel bad for them.
Oh, Kevin died. That's okay. I'll keep talking.
Yeah. Keep
The
going.
team I'm interested in is 100 Thieves. I'm excited for them. I think that yeah, someday is obviously going to be a rock in the top lane. Quid is the mid laner. I haven't seen any of his games, but I just imagine he's going to be okay, solid. I actually want to bring up what the dive was talking about. They had such a huge argument on the episode of the dive. It was like Mark or Kobe and Azale versus Mark. Mark was saying that like 100 Thieves is gonna be like garbage or like 7th place. They were garbage last year. They're gonna be garbage this year. They barely changed anything. They're still got the same issues. And then like Kobe and like Gazelle will be like, yeah, I mean, 4th place, they'll make that world spot, right? They'll improve and stuff like that, and it's like, I'm kind of on the they're gonna improve thing, right? They looked like they were a team that had like champ pool issues and bad meta reads, and were just figuring themselves out as a brand new team. Now they have new time, right? They have or more time, and they have a new coach and new mid laner and a new top laner. I think that that's 3 really big pieces to add into, people who are just learning to play with each other, right? Closer, Doublelift, and Buzio have so much more time to learn how to play with each other. Doublelift comes out of retirement. Buzio is a freaking brand new rookie, and Closer is the first time like not playing with his Golden Guardian buddies, right? So like I think there's a lot of changes that are happening, and it's pretty weird to assume they would be the same after all these changes next year. So Mark Z, you dumb. Sorry if you ever guest star on this podcast. You're cool actually, but
I really like that they actually fought over this topic
yeah,
on the
no,
like Azale was going at it with Mark, and I love that. That was
Yeah.
so good. I actually can't see how they thought it would be the same. Like, first off, it's summer double lift. Are we just gonna ignore that? Like, how is this not brought up? It's summer double lift. He's only played. He came out of retirement last split, and now he's actually got time with his support. Like,
Hmm.
It's double if when it matters.
yes, it's
yeah,
double
Yeah.
lift
Not even
when it
just
matters.
summer.
And to be fair, MSI did matter this time. So you maybe, but like he just came off a break and he got way more time with his rookie support. Like I don't understand how that doesn't compound. Their top laner is significantly better. Like I think
Yeah.
Tenacity showed he could carry, maybe even better than something on his good games, but that was like 3 out of like 10 games
Yeah.
that I watched him, right? 30% of the time. And then Quid might not be Bjergsen, but he's pretty like he's still coming from Genji Academy. Okay, he was apparently
we don't
second.
want him to be Bjergsen.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say.
I don't
It's
want him to
probably
be
That's the
good.
thing. What I'm saying is he could be even like slightly worse than Bjergsen hands-wise. I don't think he will be, but he could be because he was second tier. He wasn't the first string of Academy. Like he wasn't like the most hype mid laners. He was the one right after that tier,
Right.
is according to what they were saying on the dive, I think. And that's fine. Honestly, that might be better than Bjergsen's last split. I have always been on the Bjergsen is the GOAT, right? And even me, like watching that, I'm just like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
I don't
so-
even know if it was Bjergsen's like hands per se. It was just something about either the play style or maybe internally. Like I don't think it was like, because everybody's always said, if you look at it on paper, he was like pretty consistent, I guess, like always
Solid.
Yes.
solid.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is something, and it took me a while to kind of buy into it, but I actually do think that it's something internally when playing with the other members of the team, like his style or his way of maybe thinking, or whether it's shot calling or his inputs, like they don't seem to work well, or maybe it's his champ pool. So I think,
always-
yeah.
I always thought it was obvious. I said it almost every game that Bjergsen played Talia. He plays Talia, never roams, man. Like that's like
Yeah.
the big problem. Like that's the problem in a nutshell.
Exactly. He thinks like season 6 through 8 is peak league, and that's the way you're supposed to play, and that's
Yeah.
how he plays, and that's how he
Yeah.
wants to play.
That's how he continue to
the
play.
issue I've had with him for a while. Is he doesn't adapt. There's a reason why Faker's still at the top after 10, 11 years. It's because he adapts. He's constantly changing with the meta. Bjergsen stopped doing that a while ago, in my opinion.
Bro,
Yeah.
like this MSI is just roaming mid, man. It's just you play Nautilus, Ahri, like Cassante, and you just get the hell out of lane, bro. Like you don't even play in mid lane. Like it's been like that for years, honestly. It's
Yeah.
been like that for so long. You don't just play mid lane, man. You leave. You go
and
somewhere
that's
else.
why Yagal can play against Chovy Faker and look good. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
He just
Yagal
goes,
was
man.
losing to the Latin American North mid laners,
Yeah.
and then he was like either just doing objectively better than Chovy and Faker in most of the games. And I'm sitting like, what universe are we living in?
Right.
Yeah, so when it comes to like a player like Bjergsen and then like comparing him to a newer player, like any person that's like from this new era of League of Legends, I think it's just
Yeah.
always going to be an upgrade over Bjergsen.
Yeah, I
Like
think so.
it's just hard not to say that. Like if you just play this version of League of Legends that people are playing now, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're just gonna roam. Like that's just how you play mid lane. It's ingrained in everybody who's a current mid laner, I think. So
Do you think Harry is better than Bjergsen on Liquid?
oh my god. I mean, he's got a hands
Oh.
problem, so like it's like I can't even compare.
Okay, so
like-
once you pass like the basic bar, you're
Yeah,
saying,
you
Yeah,
gotta
yeah,
yeah.
As a
Like,
Liquid
there's
fan,
still a
I'm just sitting here
threshold.
Like,
like,
There's
like,
still a
we should-
threshold.
100 Thieves Palafox would go crazy.
I mean, I think that would be cool. Yeah, I honestly though, I feel like Palafox should not do that because he's so dope with contracts and Dokla. And
I don't disagree.
yeah, maybe they could do something there. But I mean, that could have been interesting, like maybe a change from last year to this year instead of Bjergsen joining ever. But I mean, I don't know. I saw Palafox this split with Dokla and contracts, and even though they made like 4th or 5th, I think, they were still like, I mean, Palafox was good on that team, right, with those guys. So, yeah. Something. Oh my God, I was gonna bring something up. Oh yeah, something funny. Okay, so. The great thing about having the no LCS potentially this Thursday is we don't have to suffer through the meta, which is guess what, guys? It's Zeri Yumi.
Zeri Yumi,
If you
baby.
watch LPL,
Exactly.
it's just Zeri Yumi, and it's not Zeri Yumi from last year. It is Zeri Yumi from the year before, or
With
no wait,
Triforce.
with Triforce. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's Triforce meta tank Zeri. It's broken as hell. Yumi is also just more broken if you
It's
stay
so
on one
dumb,
person.
man.
Yeah. So Yumi doesn't have that flexibility of obviously jumping from other people and being OP, but still, if you have actually Zeri Yumi, it's more OP than I think the original Zeri Yumi was almost. Maybe not completely more OP because you know OG Yumi and OG Zeri was pretty fucking broken, but this current version is as close to that as we've
Yeah.
gotten in a long time.
It is.
Also, Melio is broken and very uninteractive,
I'm
and
just
Nico
gonna say,
is hilarious.
I don't think I ever said on the podcast, but I called this was going to happen with Shield Bow not being a Mythic Rush item.
Yeah. We didn't get to talk about that much the new patch
Yeah,
stuff.
no, I definitely
so.
didn't say it here, but
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
unlucky.
And that,
But
you
hey, we
might
don't
be
have to watch
actually
it.
you might be actually right about, well, who knows, if there is some games like Riot is saying, they'll probably still pick it somehow. So
Yeah.
They'll
I
find a
just-
way.
yeah, I just hope that, and this is just a side note, but yeah, I hope they instill some of those bans, just permanent bans on, or disabled for pro play, just because it was so refreshing in MSI to like not see Yumi. I mean, I haven't seen Milio, to be fair, yet in pro play. I would imagine it would be busted, but like, okay, give it a try. If Milio, give it a split. If Milio just seems so busted like Yumi, then yeah, ban it. But I don't know. I just think that having a champ that's just been like so broken for so long, it needs to be addressed. And if it doesn't, like, it's just going to be so stale in that bot lane. But anyways, yeah, we'll find out more once we actually have a week of games to see if, you know, what LCS actually does. But is there any final thoughts before we wrap this one up? I will say that the next episode we will we did lose Alistair for a sec, but I will say that next episode, regardless, we will kind of dive more into the actual teams and the lineups and see what's going on. But any final thoughts with you guys?
My final thoughts are there will be players who will be scaps, and I personally think we should not attack them too hard because some of these people just don't have any other way of a livelihood.
money.
They lost their job literally like a week or two ago, and probably no severance, probably no alert to it, and they're just either stranded in LA or they might just have no good situation. So if they take this, I mean, I don't blame them. We're gonna have a really fun shit show. I want to see TL's janitor versus C9's janitor. I don't think they're actually playing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I want to see Jack versus fucking
Oh
Steve.
my
Man.
God.
I want to see
Yeah,
him
actually.
1v1 mid lane, bro.
Dude,
I would probably actually watch it. That would be crazy.
I would 100% watch the
Steve
chefs
would
go
destroy
down
him, though.
top
Steve
lane.
used to actually play as a pro support at some point. I don't know
Yeah,
if
he
Jack
did.
is beyond silver or gold.
Steve is Liquid 112, man. He was a real pro
Liquid
player.
112.
He was a real pro player. Double
The return of Rick Fox.
Yeah.
Oh,
dude,
yeah, baby.
I'm so
Oh
down.
my.
Yo, give me Faker on Teemo and Rick Fox. That was hilarious.
Hell yeah.
Back in the day.
The good old days.
Yeah. Last thing I want to talk about is I don't know, like we talked a lot about like the Players Association and like obviously the decisions Riot has made and blah 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 blah. Like I guess like I want to say for my own personal opinion to actually like, you know, say it out there is like we can't do much as a podcast. Like we have a very small community but we can still say something, right? So I want to say that like I actually am with the players. I think it's tough for me because I think for like someone like Travis and like a lot of the players that are in it, like it's very easy for them to just say they're with the players. And I think that for a viewer, it can also be very easy to be like, yeah, I'm with the players, like hell yeah. But like after thinking for it a while, like the players caused a lot of these problems too. And like them walking out and not showing up for the first day of LCS, it's also bad for me as a viewer because I want to watch games. And it's also bad for like the product too, because like we're just missing out a week on, you know, trying to save our dying brand in like our dying LCS, right?
Yeah.
Missing your first week of a job is really bad. You probably lose the job, right? So I think I still do stand by the players, and I am glad that they did this. But it's not as easy for like me to just say that like yeah I support this decision, you know, because there's a lot of baggage that comes with this decision that I don't like. But at the end of the day, like I don't know, they had to stand up for their own jobs and for the jobs of their fellow academy members, and I'm glad they did it. It's just like they did it so late that their choices that they're making now have so much negative like repercussions attached to it. So it sucks that they took too long to make it, but at the same time it's happening now, so I guess I support it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'll echo that sentiment. Is honestly like we're LCS fans, man. Like I don't want to not like support the LCS. Like I want to. Riot's making it really hard. The players have made it really hard. You know, there's just a bunch of things, and you know, when we talk very passionately about it, and we come up with solutions. Some may sound ridiculous. Some may, you know, not be business like smart or savvy, but it's because like we feel like there are things that can be done to salvage it. So I think that's where all of this comes from. And honestly, we just want to see the LCS thrive. Like that's I want to see it thrive now, and I want to see its players thrive for now and in the future. Like whether or not, obviously I want to win internationally, you know, but honestly, I want to see our home region thrive, whatever is the case, like, and have good fandom, just like, you know, we see in Brazil and other regions. Like, I just want that for us. So, but anyways, I think that's gonna wrap it up for us. I mean, it was a good discussion. Like I said, it was kind of not what we had planned. We were hoping to talk about the teams, and we'll do that definitely next week as we, you know, see more action. Who knows what we're gonna see this coming Thursday? But LCS does start this Thursday, according to Riot, June 1st. So we'll see what we see. But once again, I want to thank my co-hosts. Glad that you guys were all together again. Kevin, Mitchell, Alistair, and myself back together again. But until next time, enjoy your climb on the Rift. Try not to be too toxic. And we'll see you all on the next episode. Peace.